Good morning, class. This is Patrick Wilson. I will be your English instructor for this particular fall semester. And I want to welcome everybody to English 1010, the online version. And I just want to sort of give you a brief introduction to the course, where to find some stuff in your Blackboard since it is strictly 100% online. You're going to be finding and doing most of your assignments online. Obviously, drop boxes will be online, the reading, all that stuff. If you were able to check your email over the last couple of days, I did send out some guidelines or some guidance on how to log into Blackboard, how to check and read your syllabus, the textbook, that stuff. I guess it was last Wednesday or last Thursday. So you should still have that information in your student email inbox, hopefully. So that will be some help if you still need sort of a refresher. Because what I'm going to do here basically is I'm going to run through the basic steps of Blackboard in the hopes that you had a chance over the last 3 or 4 days to really read that email and go through and try to attempt to log in, to find your email, student email, the Office 365, to look at Microsoft Teams in case, because this is pretty much what I'm recording this on is Microsoft Teams, and then also to get into your Blackboard. So as you can tell here, and I know I can't really blow this up too much right now without taking up too much size, but this is pretty much what your Blackboard after you log into your account, what it should look like. On my end, it's basically going to show all the English courses that I teach, which right now I have 3 online and 2 in person, so I have 5. So I say that to, if you're sending emails throughout the week, please bear in mind that, when I'm teaching in class, because I do have 2 in class classes that I teach Monday through Thursday, know that within a 24-hour period, if it's like Monday through Thursday, you should get a message back. If it's something I can, answer fairly quickly, you probably get, and I'm not too terribly busy teaching or driving or whatever the case may be. If it's something I can really easily answer, you probably get something back within, a 10 or 15-minute period. If it takes a little bit longer, like if you're sending me drafts to read of your essays, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we move along here, it may take a day or so. Just like I said, keep in mind, I got 4 of the classes besides this one. Most of my online courses are pretty much slap full, 20 plus students. I think I have several that are nearing 30 students. So that's a lot of reading, when it comes to these essays once they start to come in. But just bear with me. If you send something, it will get answered. If you turn something in for a grade, it will be graded. The other thing is if it's something over the weekend, because basically our schedule here at Coastal Pines as it relates to instructors is that we work Monday through Thursday, basically 10-hour days. Then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is sort of our downtime. I do check emails over the weekend. I don't live on the computer though for 10-hour days on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But if you do send something over the weekend, I will answer it back as quickly as I can. It could be anywhere from a 24 to a 48-hour time frame. If it's a holiday or something, it could be a little bit longer, but I will respond to you. I'm not trying to, avoid you or annoy you. You will get something back. It just may not be as quick as it will be during the work week. If it's anything like I had experienced this past weekend, it would have been a really kind of a challenging aspect because my wife and I had to deal with some flooding issues in our downstairs townhome that was not only impacting our downstairs, but also our neighbors. So it was a 3-day, really, it started Friday night, lasted until Monday afternoon, which we finally, I think, fixed the issues. But it was an every 12-hour cycle, our downstairs started to be a geyser and flood and stuff. So it was really fun trying to get the first day kicked off. And that's why I sort of apologize, because usually I would have a video on the first day, but because I had to sort of deal with that as well, I had to, juggle some stuff. And then my 8-year-old daughter wanted to puke at school. So that was another totally another issue. It's never a dull moment at our house, it seems anymore. But anyway, I'd like to welcome you to the course. I hope everybody has had a great first 2 days. I don't know when a chance you're going to be able to watch this, but I hope this week goes smooth for you. Obviously, reach out if you need some help. Email is probably the quickest way, but if you read the syllabus, you will see that I do have an office number if you want to call. If I'm not in the office, you can leave a message and a number, and I will get back to you as quickly as I possibly can. But again, email is usually probably the quickest because I'm here 10-hour days, and that's usually what I check the most. I definitely check it in the morning. I check it throughout the day, and then before I leave, I usually check it again. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run through sort of what to expect each week in this particular class, look at some of the stuff over in the syllabus, and then sort of talk about the MLA 9 format, how you should format your essays, because if you looked, the first essay assignment is in the week 1 folder, and I will show you about where to find all these folders and all that good stuff. So let's go ahead and dive in. Basically going to click on the online version of 1010. So you should have a home page. Good thing about the home page, it does a couple things. You're not really going to find a whole lot here that's going to be definite stuff that you're going to need, but it's going to tell you what's new. So if there's anything that I loaded up recently, it's going to sort of locate that. And of course, over the last couple of weeks, I've been loading stuff. So that's why this stuff is going to look all new. So you can click there to easily get to a particular assignment or a particular area of the page, if that would be helpful. The other thing is, it will also tell you some past due dates. That's really more on me, but it will also be helpful for you. As I say in the syllabus, because this is a fast nature online course, meaning we're doing something from week 1 to week 2 to week 3, we don't really have a lot of time for late work or makeup work. Deadlines are there for you and for me. They're there for me so I can keep the gradebook, fluent, and current. They're there for you to keep up with your assignments so you can get the criticism, the constructive criticism, and the feedback, so you're not making the same mistakes or errors from one paper to the next. So that's why, deadlines are in place. If there is a issue where we have to sort of change a deadline, more or less, I'm going to push it back, and I will let you know when the new deadline is, either through announcements or email. So that's why it's going to be, very important to check your student email throughout the week, each time that we meet throughout the week, because you just never know. Like with yesterday, with stuff going on at my place, in my face-to-face class, I was able to sort of get here to talk to them about the first day of stuff, but then I had to sort of quickly head back home to help my wife in case it started to flood again. But when it comes to online, I can easily send out emails to kind of let you know if there's something going on. But you're just going to have to check the emails to be able to realize that. Generally, I don't add new stuff to your assignment list. I think right now you pretty much have enough assignments to do for the semester. You don't need anything extra. So with that said, I usually don't take stuff away. I just push it back if there comes a time that I need to push something back. Just, a lot of ways it's for not only for your own mental sanity, but it's also for mine as well, especially if I got 4 other classes and deadlines are basically around the same time. So I'm getting essays from every direction. But again, usually the deadlines that I have set are usually pretty much in stone unless something changes. And again, I will let you know if that does happen. Just, check email, be alert to those sort of things. The need attention is really going to be for me. Once you turn in something that needs to be graded, it's going to basically give me a prompt that says, hey, grade me. So that's going to remind me to give you a grade. Like I said, usually for small, it's like quizzes or tests or, like peer reviews, which we're going to be doing more of than quizzes and tests. Generally, they don't take me that long to grade. You know, within a week, you should get some sort of feedback back for those, if not sooner. Essays, depending on the length and how many I'm getting in from other classes, that could be, you know, anywhere from a week to 2 weeks, but I try to get those back before your next essay is due, just so that you have the feedback and can kind of fix or do anything that you need to improve on before you submit that next essay, because you don't want to keep making the same mistakes. Because if you're making the same mistakes, then obviously you're going to get the same points sort of taken away from it. So that's sort of how I roll with the grades. I'm not one of those instructors that wait until midterm or wait until the final week to just dump a lot of grades on there and leave you in sort of a mystery of what your grade is until the last 2 days of class. I hated when, professors did that to me when I was going to college, so I don't do that. Generally, you will know what your grade is from a week or 2 week basis. You're going to know if you're passing. You're going to know if you're just doing sort of mediocre. You're going to know if you're failing. I will tell you this as well. Blackboard is going to run weekly, a sort of a grade type deal. So don't freak out unless you're just missing assignments or you're starting to really do poorly and your grade's going to drop, because you're going to get weekly announcements that basically going to warn you of this. If you don't, the other thing is some students get it and they say, well, I turned everything in. Why am I still getting this announcement? Generally, you get those announcements for a couple of reasons. Number one is if you're just not logging in and completing the work on time. If your grade is slipping, meaning it's getting below a C level, which is basically 69 or lower, you're going to start getting these messages. Or if you don't turn in work through the drop boxes. Let's say you, for whatever reason, couldn't get the Dropbox to work on your end, so you email your assignment. So because you didn't go through the Dropbox, it's going to flag it as you being late or haven't turned it in, even though I did grade it and put a grade in there. So just be mindful of that. Usually it's the first two that, really catch my attention. If you're just doing poorly or not turning stuff in, then obviously it's going to flag you every week, and you're going to see your grade decrease every week. So that gets me to the other thing, and we're going to talk about, because this is an online course, there needs to be an assignment due within the first week. Just logging in, and I will show you that right now because there's no really grades up. But when I pull up the full grade center, it's going to look different, obviously, on your end, because it's probably just going to have your name. As you notice, it tells me who has last logged in. If you look, I have some that have logged in and then some that are blank and haven't logged in at all. Attendance in this particular class is by what you submit, basically on a Sunday to Sunday basis. So when we look into the lesson folder, you're going to see that you do have an assignment for this week that's due Sunday. So let's just say that I'm just going to use Jonathan for an example. If Jonathan logged in yesterday, which was the first day of class, great, that's fine. I'm glad he logged in. Hopefully he's able to, navigate and go through the system. The thing is, once we get to Sunday the 28th, if Jonathan didn't submit anything, he didn't turn in that first discussion assignment. Let's say he logged in on the 28th, but still didn't do any work. It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter if you log in 35 times a day between now and the 28th. You have to submit something to be graded by 11:59 this Sunday, August 28th, because if you don't, on Monday, when I get to work on the 29th, you're counted as a no-show and will be dropped. I'm just letting you know that up front now. So for those that haven't logged in, you want to go ahead and kind of log in. For those that have logged in, and for everybody else that I hope logs in after, you want to make sure that you have that first assignment submitted by 11:59 on the 28th. Otherwise, Monday at 8 o'clock in the morning, you will be dropped. So hopefully nobody wants to be victim of that, but that's the college policy for online courses. So please be mindful of that. The other thing is, If you find that you're not doing so well in the class as we move on from week 2 to week 5 to week 9, that type deal, and your grade is really getting kind of lower, you can withdraw yourself from the class. There's a couple ways that you can do that. If you email me or whatever, we can talk about that. I don't really want to get involved too much with that now because this is really just the second day. But I just want to let you know you do have some chances throughout the semester, but you're going to have to initiate that effort. You just can't just stop coming or stop logging in or stop turning stuff in, because if you do that, you're just going to collect zeros. And because you didn't take the initiative and go through the proper channels to withdraw yourself, your grade at the end of the semester in December is going to be a 0. You're going to keep the F. So if you don't want to do that because it may screw up scholarship chances or financial aid issues, then you need to go through the proper way to remove yourself from the class. And again, there's a couple ways to do that. All right. So if you look over here, once you logged in, again, like I said, several of y'all still need to log in, and then everybody needs to complete that first assignment. We'll talk a little bit more about what that first assignment is here momentarily. If you look over here in this little sidebar on the left, you have your home page, which that's where we just came from. If you look below it, you have your course syllabus with your checklist. We will talk about that here momentarily. Again, I'm not going to read everything that's in the syllabus or everything that's on the checklist. I'm not going to insult your intelligence. I know you know how to read. If you read these 2 items and there's still some issues or concerns, please email me so we can address those. The textbook. Some folks have been emailing me, where's the textbook? Do I have to buy a textbook? No, your course textbook is an OER, which is an open educational research or resource textbook. It's free. Anywhere that you have internet access that you can get on the Blackboard, you just click here and it will load up your textbook. This is the textbook that we're going to be using. If there's any additional text that we need, I will upload the links or the handouts to your weekly folders. So you don't really have to buy anything for this class per se, like a book. Everything is going to be available for you via the internet and, Blackboard. If you do need to purchase something, the only thing I would say that you would probably want to purchase would be a thumb drive so you can save your rough drafts and your final drafts of your essays, because nothing is more frustrated than, let's say, you have a power surge or lightning hits around your house, you're working on that 7-page paper and you haven't really saved any pieces of it or any part of it, and the power goes off for 4 hours. This thing is due in 6 hours, and when the power comes back up, it's 8 o'clock. This thing is due by midnight, and guess what? You didn't save it anywhere, can't retrieve it. So now you have basically 4 or 5 hours to start from scratch again. That's going to be, frustrating aspect. I sympathize with you. I've been there, I've done that. I've also been penalized from other instructors when I was a student because I was the one that, forgot to save something. They sympathized with me, but they also said, hey, you know about this deadline 3 or 4 weeks in advance. You knew that you needed to save it multiple times at various points. It's really on you, not on me. Try your best to get whatever you can get back together and turn something in. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and give that disclaimer. If you don't have a thumb drive, get one. You can go to Walmart and get them kind of cheap. You don't necessarily have to get one that's going to hold a whole lot of stuff, but just enough maybe for this class. You want to email your drafts or email your work to various different email addresses, I guess, just to sort of have a backup copy. A lot of us have a Yahoo account or a Gmail email account or whatever the case may be. You can email drafts to yourself on Facebook Messenger, Twitter if need be. You just want to have a place where if something does go drastically wrong, let's say like in my instance, let's say you had a bad flood and it actually got into your equipment as it relates to your computers or your electronics. And it just, even then, it basically ruined your thumb drive. Let's say the thumb drive got knocked on the floor and it got flooded out. Well, if you emailed your draft to multiple email addresses at that point, you still have pieces of it. It's a lot better to start on page 4 than to go back and say, man, I just lost everything, so I have to start back on page 1. So that's sort of the one big hint, one big benefit of having a thumb drive or a flash drive, and also emailing yourself multiple times to keep a draft. So that's the textbook. Discussion board, we will talk a little bit more about this. This is where you're going to find that first assignment, or what you need to type and submit to be counted present basically for the semester for this first week. If you look, if there's any kind of announcements I will make, they will be here, but they will also be probably emailed to your Coastal Pines email account. So you're probably going to get them twice to kind of keep you in mind. Don't have to necessarily worry about the calendar so much, because you have a checklist that will help you with that, because I don't know how your calendar looks on your end, but I know on mine it has all the English classes that basically are on Blackboard, and it's all color coordinated, and it's really confusing. So I wouldn't even necessarily look at the calendar unless it's kind of, if it's not as messy or busy as mine is. Mine's pretty busy, so I try not even to look at that, honestly, just because there's just so much going on there. Your grades, or my grades at this point, as you start turning stuff in and I start grading your items, you will be able to check your grades. You should be able to click on the actual assignment, especially like if you uploaded a paper or something, you should be able to download and look at my feedback, that type deal, as grades start to come in. Proctor U, you can start reading over some of this stuff. You will have a Proctor U, because you're taking an online course. All online courses have a Proctor U element to it. Generally, it's either around a midterm or a final as it relates to an English class, or as it relates to my class. I will let you know as it gets closer what I plan on doing. I'm pretty sure I'm probably going to leave the Proctor U event into the final exam week, because I tried to do it during midterm week for my summer class, and it sort of had a disastrous deal there. I don't know if it was just because it was a 10-week class compared to a 16-week class, or what the deal was, but only like half of the students did the Proctor U, and that's why their grades started to suffer from week 5 moving forward, because they just didn't take Proctor U. But we will talk a little bit more about that as it gets closer. And like I said, more than likely, I'm probably going to leave it until the last week or so of our semester. Email. There's a couple ways that you can get to me by email. You can go through your Coastal Pines Office 365 account. I will, walk you through that if need be. Or if you go into your actual course, you can kind of tell here, there's a couple things that you can click on. You can either do all instructor users, which is basically just me. As you can tell, my email address is already there. Just type in your subject and give me a brief message. If you need to upload a file, let's say a draft, Microsoft Word draft, just attach it, choose your file, and I'll just give you an example here. Double click, I'm going to double click on a file. If you don't see your file name here, if nothing's basically there, when you hit submit, you're basically just submitting your message and not a file. So just make sure that when you do choose a file does attach. The thing about Blackboard email is that you can send me messages all day long on Blackboard email, and I will get them in my inbox of my Coastal Pines email account. The problem is you can never check email from Blackboard. So you're going to have to go to your Coastal Pines Office 365 account to get my replies, or to get anybody else that sends you email through the college. That's where you're going to get it. Blackboard is basically just a one-way street as it relates to email. But that will be easy there. Let me see. I will pull up real quick if I can. The whole deal. I'll pull this over real quick. So when you initially log in, you're going to look at this particular where it says My Apps. And again, as I explained in the handout, Blackboard is right here. That's going to be one of probably the most app that you use this semester, especially if you're taking other classes. Your email account is right here. So it's basically diagonal, it's up and to the right. So if you click there, It's going to give you a prompt. You go through that prompt, and this is where you're going to get, emails, replies, that deal from, either me or other folks in the college. So just keep in mind, Blackboard email and the actual Office 365 email are different in a lot of ways. Because when I send a message through Blackboard, it may not go into your focus section. I don't know how your email actually, the face of it or the platform looks. I have mine sort of set up this way so I can not miss messages as much. But if you go over to your other or your junk, the way Blackboard is set up, sometimes when folks send messages through Blackboard, it goes to your other or your junk message for whatever reason. But if you look here, this is the email I sent last Thursday, I guess. It was before noon. It's sort of a welcoming to the class. It gives you sort of a paper form with some imagery about how to go about logging in and stuff. But anyway, it says it right here because I sent it through Blackboard. Do not reply at blackboard.com. So if you try to reply to this message, I'm never going to get it because it basically tells you do not reply to it. Because it's going somewhere in Blackboard and you can't check email on Blackboard. I would, at some point, I would hope maybe they would fix that where you could actually receive messages through Blackboard. But I guess right now, that's not available. So make sure that you check your email regularly, your student email, because a lot of students, they think that their Gmail and their Yahoo is going to be, it's going to count as that, and it doesn't, because the college actually gives you a student email account. And a word about the personal email accounts, like everybody has a Gmail, a Yahoo, a Hotmail. The college really wants you to use the Office 365 email address. So if you try to send something through a Gmail or a Yahoo, I may or may not get it because of our firewall. If I do get it, I may not be able to send a reply back to that address because of the firewall again. So that's why I would say use the Office 365 that the college provides. All right. The other thing is you can, if you want to, as we get into the peer review aspect of stuff, if you can select users, if you want to select certain folks in the class, if you want to email them for whatever reason, you can. Just be wary if you hit all users and send an email, it's going to go to everybody in the class. So if you're just directing something to me or directing something to another classmate, unless you just want everybody to read it, I wouldn't use the all users. I've had students in the past that did that, and it got kind of, some stuff that was sort of private to them. They didn't really need to have, 25 other people looking at it, but because they clicked all users and then they did type their message and then they sent it, it went to everybody. So once you send it out, there's no way to take it back. So it's like the whole deal with the toothpaste out of the tube. Once you squeeze the toothpaste out, it's hard to get that excess toothpaste back in the tube. And the same thing with the email. Once you hit submit, that email is gone. I mean, it's going to where it's going to go. So be mindful of that. All right, so let's look at our lessons. So this is where you're going to find your weekly folders. My page is going to look a little bit different than yours because obviously I have the whole semester right in front of my eyelids here. What I will say, and what I have here in my little blurbs, is that every Wednesday at midnight, so really starting Thursday morning going through the following week, your new folder will open up. So right now we're in week 1, and we're going to click on that here momentarily, and I'm going to go and talk a little bit more about that here. But right now we're in week 1, so week 1's available. Everything that's in week 1 is up. On Thursday morning, week 2 is going to open up. So you're going to start looking, you can start clicking on the week 2. You may start to get ahead if you feel confident about getting ahead for week 2. Some things may not be there 100% yet. So you want to sort of keep checking back into to make sure. Generally by Monday of the new week, everything should be ready to go for that week. Now, if there's any links or anything that's broken or not working, because sometimes when I upload stuff a week ahead of time, it works great on my end. And then when it comes the week of, something's going on with the link. So you need to kind of let me know, just email me and say, hey, can you double check the link? The link's not working on my end. What's going on? Because otherwise, if you wait until Sunday when something's due and you're not letting me know that the link didn't work, then it's really going to put everybody in a bind, because of 25 students or more, nobody has let me know in 6 days that this thing is not working. So if you can just be mindful of that, if something doesn't work, please let me know as soon as possible so I can go and address it on my end to see what's going on. And that's basically what's going to happen. So you're basically going to have your new folder open up about a week and a half before it really starts. So you can go ahead and kind of work ahead, at least on the reading maybe. How I have this sort of planned is that basically about every 3 weeks, there's going to be a final essay draft due. So like the first week is sort of going to get you introduced to whatever rhetorical mode that we're working with as it relates to the rhetoric and the composition of the piece. So like the first 3 weeks here, we're dealing with narration. So that's why I give you in week 1, when we look at it here momentarily, you have some information about narration. The page numbers that I give you refer back to your e-text. So anytime there's page numbers, it's going back to that e-text that I just showed you. Stuff that doesn't have page numbers will be as a handout or a upload in your weekly folder. You can download those, print those out, save those if you think you're going to need them from week 2 to week 3. Because every Sunday, the week folder that we're on is going to be unavailable. So like week 1 at midnight on Sunday, it disappears. It gives room for week 2 to sort of pump through. And that's sort of how it's going to go. So the second week usually is going to be a week where we're going to do a peer review. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that as it gets closer to the second week. Is basically you want to have a complete draft of whatever essay that you're working on. So you can upload it to a discussion post or a journal blog and be able to exchange your essay, because once you upload your essay and your classmate uploads their essay, you can download each other's essay and read it. And then I'm going to give a series of questions that, based on your reading of their essay, you can sort of do a peer evaluation of how well their essay is written and what they need to improve and that type deal. So the second week is going to be basically peer review and drafting. And then that third week of whatever that genre that we're on is going to be when you turn in that final draft of your essay, the one that you want me to give you a final grade on. So it's going to go in that cycle. So when we get to week 4, it's sort of like starting over again. You're just going to have a new genre of writing. In this case, when we get to week 4, it's going to be description writing. And then week 5 would be peer review of essay 2. Week 6 would be the final draft of essay 2. And then week 7, we start the next rhetorical mode of writing. Because writing is a process. It takes time. Good writing takes time. You got to nurture it. It's like if you're trying to grow a garden, you can't just throw seeds out there and, well, half of it is Mother Nature. The other half is going to have to rely on you. If you just throw seeds out there, especially in our weather now and our soil and how hot it is, you may or may not get anything to grow. And that's how your drafts are. Writing is a process. It does take time. So the other thing with this course is time management. If you're a procrastinator, or if you like waiting until the last minute to do stuff, you're going to hate this course, because it's going to be something that's constantly due every Sunday at least. Some folks work really well under pressure. A lot of folks don't. And it's those folks that don't work really well under pressure, especially if they have a family, if they got a job, if they got other online or in-person classes, that they wait until Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to do a lot of this stuff, that the window starts to close in and really squish you. And then you start to pick and choose and balance. Well, do I need to concentrate more on math or English or history? What do I need to, by that time, you're so much in the air juggling stuff that everything starts to suffer. Not only the schoolwork suffers, your work life starts to suffer, your family life starts to suffer. And as you get closer to, October, November, your stress and your health is going to overall start to suffer. You're going to start getting sick a little bit more and that type of stuff, which we don't want, because COVID is still going on, as we know. And that's the other thing too. The deal is, because you're on an online course, if you get COVID, unless you're just really bad off or in the hospital for weeks on end, you're still responsible for the work, because you're not coming to in-person classes. You still have the internet, you still have Blackboard, you still have, your computer. You can still submit work. I mean, you can email me and tell me that you got COVID. That's fine. I don't necessarily need a 100% doctor's note or excuse. You probably want to keep that just in case. But as it relates to, the work, if you're still able to get up and move around in your own house, then you're still able to type up the assignment and read it may not be the best feeling in the world, because I had COVID back in the beginning of the spring. I've had it for 3 weeks back then. It was really rough for me. So I kind of understand where everybody's going with that, but I still had stuff. I still had papers to try to grade, and because I was still at home. I mean, I had to fight through it. So just be mindful of that. That's fine. The doctor says you can't go anywhere for 5 days, but you still have your laptop, you still have Blackboard, you can still do the work during those 5 days. You can still get it in before Sunday, unless you're in the hospital, and then that's a whole nother story. And again, I'm going to need documentation when it comes to that, from a legit doctor, right? I can't, just your little home test and grandma giving you a note is not the doctor, and the home test is just, it's the home test. It's not really an official test from a doctor's office. Okay. So let's look a little bit deeper into week one. Basically, my weeks go from Sunday to Sunday. Like I say, you have a 7-day period to do most things. When it comes within the stuff within the week, I generally will give you sort of a overview of what we're doing in the week. As you can tell here, the first thing gives you some page numbers going back to that course textbook. So you want to read 6 through 16, 44 through 53, 195 through 207, and 214. Now, some of that's going to be dealing with narration and the writing process in general. And then some of those page numbers are going to be dealing with some grammar aspects of the course. Now, I have in the past did the grammar quizzes, and sometimes those work, sometimes those don't work so well as it relates to the grade. I look at it this way: by the time you get to this level of college English, you've already had K through 12th grade English. Whether you got a high school diploma or a GED, somebody has taught you grammar at some point. Now, whether you retained all that or remembered all that, or was that the best part of your, academic career, I can't really attest to that. But at some point within those 12 years, you should have had grammar. You should know what a run-on sentence is. You should know how to correct a comma splice. You should know how to correct a misplaced modifier. These page numbers that I give you as it relates to the grammar will give you a brush up and a review. If you need additional brush ups and reviews, you can always Google for, comma exercises or fragment quizzes and try to do some interactive stuff online. If you're still having issues, then you can always email me and say, hey, I still have, I'm still doing, I'm still using semicolons wrong in my paper. What do you suggest I do? Either I can find some stuff online, additional exercises. You can, set up a Teams meeting if you can't travel to the Camden campus where I'm at, for a tutorial session. We can figure out something. The deal is, though, grammar does matter, spelling does matter. Utilize the spell check, utilize the grammar check. Yes, I know the grammar and the spelling check only does so much because it is a computer program, but it's a lot better than not doing a spell check or a grammar check. Because, I mean, if you're sending 3 or 4 page essays and you're having the same mistakes all the time, dealing with the same words that you're misspelling, and you're creating the same comma splices, then obviously you need a little additional help. You need to either show up for a tutoring session, you need to either show up for a session online, which again, if you look here, there's an online tutoring session called Smart Thinking. You can upload your essays there. That would be helpful. But you need to get the help, because otherwise, if you don't know how to use the comma, you're going to keep using the comma, incorrectly throughout the next 4, 5, 6 weeks, and it's going to hurt your grade, because you're basically losing the same points every time you turn in that essay. And that's why your grade is going down, not going up. So just keep that in mind. After you read those pages, I do, because this is an online course, since we don't meet, 2 days a week in person, that type deal, I supplement some of the reading with some videos. So if you read, I would read the stuff in the textbook first. If you still don't understand the stuff in the textbook, meaning I would, take active notes. Hopefully you know how to take notes from previous classes, right? Where you can download a little bit of that textbook, or you can have a notepad or a notebook and you can write your own kind of notes to kind of remember things. Then I would go to these videos and watch these videos, because the videos are going to supplement the reading. In other words, if you're having issues reading or understanding what you're reading in the book, hopefully the videos will sort of unpack a lot of that for you. And it gives you more, for those that are visual learners, it gives you something more to watch. Some of the videos are kind of lengthy, some of them are kind of short. That's going to vary from week to week. Do your best. That's why I say you have 7 days. You have from Sunday to Sunday, in this case, Monday to Sunday, to read all this stuff and to watch all this stuff. If you do a little bit each day, it probably won't take you all that long. If you notice your textbook reading, you have a lot of diagrams and imagery and all that stuff. So that takes up a good bit of the page. So even though it may look like there's a lot to read each week, there's really not. If you take all the pictures and everything out, you're doing half of probably what it looks like you're having to do. The other thing that you're going to have to read for the first assignment that's not in your textbook per se is this Sherman Alexie Indian education piece. So if you click here, it's going to take you to that particular piece. As it relates to our genre of writing that we're going to be doing for the next 3 weeks, basically week 1, week 2, and week 3, which is narration, a narrative, right? When we think of narrative or narration writing, we think of telling a story. So every movie that you watch, whether it's fictional, non-fictional, whether episodic TV show, a cartoon, there is a narrative there. There is a beginning, middle, and end. You may have some foreshadowing. You may have some, think of your favorite novel or short story or movie in that case. You're going to have sort of a beginning, and then you're going to have sort of that rising action. You're going to have a climax, and then you're going to have a resolution, and then an ending, right? So that's how you want to sort of approach your essay 1. When we look at some of the topics, that's what you want to kind of keep in mind. A good professional example of what a narration essay would look like or have a feel of is this piece by Sherman Alexie, Indian Education. Now, as you can tell, it's really about 3 pages. They're not necessarily, or he's not necessarily following MLA format, but again, this was published in a larger piece, so they're using their own format for that. But it starts off, generally narratives, when you start off telling a story, you do have a beginning, right? So he starts off in the 1st grade, and as you can tell, it goes sort of in chronological order. 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, some a little longer, some not as long. But he's going in order. He's going from A to B to C to D without, skipping or moving around so much. When we think of narrative writing, we think in linear fashion, meaning you go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, right? If you're thinking about, in this case, he's going to talk about his Indian education. Generally, you wouldn't start in 1st grade and then go from that 1st grade that he does here to 6th grade, back to 2nd grade, then the 9th grade, then back to 6th grade. You don't do all of that moving around, you know, non-linear stuff. One, because it's confusing to do, especially if you're not a very good writer and you can't do that. And it's hard to keep up and read for your reader. So you want to go from point A to point B to point C. So read through this piece. You don't necessarily have to worry so much about the exercises here, because after you read through this piece and take your own notes, if you look, assignment 1 is right here. And I basically give you what you need to do for assignment 1. I give you the question. I basically say, in 125 words, answer the question below on this week's reading. How does Alexi's short story show a different side to being American and the American dream? So after you read the Sherman piece and you take your notes on it and you feel confident about, you know, being able to answer this question, you want to click here. And it's going to take you to this. As you can tell, nobody's done it yet. So to get started, you're going to have to create a thread. You're going to have to give it a subject, a title, something that relates maybe to this particular question. And then you can either use Microsoft Word, which I probably would. I would go ahead and maybe type your thing up in Microsoft Word, because the benefit of Microsoft Word is if you go to your file, and what I do is go to option. And then when I look as it relates to the spell check and the grammar check, what I do is go to proofing. I go here and it says writing style. I make sure all these boxes are clicked. I go to writing style. I make sure I have grammar and refinements, not just grammar, because it's only going to check certain things. So I do grammar and refinements. I then go to settings, and then I look and I make sure a good bit of these are checked, because it will be helpful. And then I recheck the document. I hit yes. And then I go back up to where it says review, and I do the spell and grammar check. And that's going to help you out. Here, in this particular email that I had to send, it said it already did everything, so I don't have anything wrong. Then what I would do is just highlight that, right click, copy, go back to this. I would go ahead and paste it in there, keep the format. That way your spell check and your grammar check, you already did that and you won't have to worry about it. So you can go ahead and click there and then hit submit, and then that will already be there. If you look, about 125 words is sort of about what I have here. It's about 153, but really 125 is about half a page. If you consider there's 250 words, you know, double space, that type deal. So it's going to be about a half a page. Or a good sized paragraph to be able to meet that. Now, am I going to be, you know, checking the word count or anything? I can. I mean, it's very easy for me just to copy and paste your thing back into Microsoft Word and to check your words. Will I do that for everything? Probably not. But obviously, I mean, there's a reason why I say 125 words, because I know if you only give me a sentence that has 17 words in it, it probably has not really answered this question. And it's telling me you probably didn't really think or really read the material to be able to answer the question. So the flip side of that is, what if it's, and you can always go to your discussion board here and click here as well. And again, you'd have to create a thread to be able to get graded. If you give me 100 words, are you going to take, am I going to take off? It depends on how well I think you answer the question. If it seems like you answered the question fairly well and you basically got to the point, you know, and a lot of times I would rather you get to the point, give me substance, quality information rather than fluff, then I'm not going to, you know, I'm not going to be a hard nose about taking off because you missed 25 words. The same token, what if you do go over and it's 200 words? The same thing. If it's really good writing, if it has a message, if it conveys a point, you're not just, you know, fluffing up the other 75 words or whatever, then there's probably not going to be any, you know, deduction of points. Now, if you give me 50 words and you don't really answer any part of the question, you just sort of beat around the bush about it, then yes, I mean, you're not going to get as many, points, because you don't really follow instructions. You don't give me 125 words, and what you do give me just shows me that you didn't really read the material really well. And if you needed help, you definitely didn't ask for it, because I didn't get an email from you. So just keep that in mind. The videos usually are linked up to YouTube. They're informal, informational rather. They're not, some of them may be kind of informal, but most of them, they're either coming from like writing centers or other colleges or other, professionals that have taught English before or currently are teaching English. This just gives you another perspective to approach this class with. Sometimes instead of hearing it from me all the time, hearing it from somebody else or watching somebody else can sort of click on that light bulb in your head and get you thinking in a different direction too. So if we look real quick at our topics, again, you want to click here and download that. Pull these up. So this is your assignment for the first essay. So basically it wants you to type this thing out in MLA 9 double space Times New Roman 12 font. I will send out some information about what that means as it relates to the format. I will also kind of show you how you can go about using Microsoft Word to find that template that you can use. Basically, it's right there for you now for free. In this case, we're going to start off with the page and a word count kind of low. With each additional essay, we're moving that page and that word count up. So when we get to essay 2, it's going to be 3 pages and 750 words. When we get to essay, that'll be essay 2. When we get to essay 3, it's going to be 4 pages or 1,000 words. When we get to essay 5, it's going to be 5 pages and I guess like 1,250 words. The reason why we're doing that is because when we get to the research paper, and that needs to be, I think, between 6 and 8 pages, you'll be able to write something that is of that length, because every 3 weeks we're working our way up to that gold. The goal in the 16-week class is for you to be a better writer leaving December 13th than you were coming in on August 22nd. That's the goal. Because everything that you learn in here, in some aspect, you're going to use somewhere else before you graduate. You're going to probably have to write another essay at some point in another class. The only difference is, are you doing APA format or MLA format, which APA is not that bad. Hopefully, if you're in a class that has to do APA format, they will show you the ropes of how to do that. In this particular class, we strictly use MLA. That's it. Research papers. You're probably going to have to write another research paper before you graduate. I can tell you, the higher that you go up in your education, the quizzes and the tests, they just sort of go away. It will be papers and research papers, right? If you're going for a bachelor's degree, papers and research papers. Depending on your major, though. If you're going into something like culinary arts or something, you may not have to do as many papers. But I will say, I mean, even math majors, when they go for their master's in math or doctorate in math, you still have to write longer essays and papers. Like for me to get my master's, I had to do a master's thesis, which was basically, it was like a mini novella. It was like 5 chapters. It was nearly 60 pages. And then you have to go and defend it, among a group of professors, which that's also nerve-wracking too. But as I say, as you go up in your academic career, you're going to have to write more longer, in-depth papers. And a lot of times it might not just be essays, like the first 4 papers here is just basically essays that really rely more or less on your personal opinion. At some point, they don't even want to hear so much about your personal opinion. They want to see how well you can read, write, and think critically and analytically. So you may go to your next class at some point. Let's say if you're going to Georgia Southern or Valdosta, and they say, well, here's the deal. You're only going to have four graded assignments. You have a midterm week 8, You have a final week 16. Those are the only sort of objective tests. They're all in class. And then you got 2 research papers. One is, 12 pages. That's due before the midterm. And the other one's 20 pages. That's due, before the final. Those are your 4 grades. So I've been in classes where you only had 2 grades. You had a midterm paper that was 20 pages, and then you had a final paper that was nearly 40 pages. So you just have to kind of keep this stuff in mind. And even if you don't think you're ever going to use this writing stuff, because it's not what, if you're going to be, somebody that cuts hair or whatever the case may be, if you got kids, you got nieces or nephews or cousins, somebody that's going through the public school system now, somebody that's going to be in college at some point, you can actually help them have less stress or less headaches because you know how to write a paper. So in a lot of ways, you're reteaching them what you just learned. So I'm hoping, each week you're learning something new, not only to benefit you in your academic career, but something that you can use, that you can pass off to somebody else in your family or your friends or something of that nature. That's the goal, right? You're not going to be the next Shakespeare, in 15 weeks. I don't, that's not everybody's goal. But really, I want to see that you do improve your writing. Essay 4 is better than essay 2 as it relates to the quality of the work, that type deal. That's what I'm looking for. And that's why I hope as we go through these weeks and you send me drafts and you send smart thinking drafts and you send, participate with your peer in these peer reviews, because you got 3 different people looking at your work, not counting you or a set of eyes. So that's 4. And then if you have somebody outside of both, class or whatever, that's really good with writing papers, you can have them look at it. So you have a possibility of having at least 5 people look at your work within 3 weeks. There really should be no reason why you can't make a C or higher on most of these essays, unless you're just procrastinating and not really following the instructions. If you wait until this thing is due, then yes, it's going to be a headache, because you're not going to have all the resources that you had, the previous, 2.5 weeks. I may not be, if you wait until Sunday, the 11th of September, when this thing is due, and it's due in 3 hours, if you wait until 9 o'clock at night, well, obviously smart thinking is probably not going to get it back to you that fast. You're not going to have enough time to go through and revise it. I'm probably going to be ready to head to bed, because I got 2 kids and a wife and a life and stuff that, here I am thinking everybody's doing really well because they've had 3 weeks to write this first essay. I'm not necessarily going to be able to respond, 9:30 at night, because somebody's panicking because they haven't started the essay until just now. And then, of course, you're not going to have, other resources, because if you didn't have the essay until then, you probably didn't turn anything with the peer review the week before. So you don't have any feedback from your peers then. And then family and friends, Sunday night, they're probably ready to do whatever they're ready to do. So they're not going to have much time for you either. So it's always good to start these things as soon as possible. Work a little bit each day. It won't be so, overwhelming by the time you get to the 11th of September. I'm really kind of hoping by the time you get to week 3, because this only needs to be 2 pages or 500 words, you're pretty much in the revision stage as it is. You're done with it. You're just sending drafts either to me, smart thinking, that type deal. It's to the point where you're ready to send it to bed because you're tired of getting drafts back from me telling you, hey, you still got a comma issue or a misspelling on page 3 or whatever the case may be. So work smarter, not harder. So these are your topics. There's 4. You get to choose 1. Have you ever been scammed? How did it happen? What was your first day in college like? Did it live up to your expectations? Now, you can replace college with something else, right? If you don't want to talk necessarily about your first day here, you can talk about your first day at high school, or your first day in elementary school, or your first day at your job, whatever that first job was, or your newest job. So you can replace the word college with something else. The negative effects of digital life. Now, digital life could be anything from, YouTube, social media accounts, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. So you can kind of think about that a little bit. There's a couple different ways that you can go with that because of digital life being sort of broad. You can kind of narrow that down and focus it in if you wanted to. Things that irritate you about you and your family. So you could talk a little bit about that. Now, the good thing about narrative writing is if you look at sort of the sample paper in your e-text, because there is a sample paper for narration, I think it goes about 2.5 or 3 pages. You can look at that as a model. It's a really good student A quality paper. So I give you the Sherman Alexie piece as a way to show you a professional, polished piece of writing, but also the book gives you a college student A quality writing as well. So you have 2 examples basically to look at. Your narrative piece here can be nonfiction, meaning it can be truthful to as much truth that you want to give me. Some people are not really comfortable about talking a lot about their private or personal life, and I understand that. With that said, you can be fiction. You can have a narrative that is fiction here, meaning basically you're sort of making up stuff along the way. You can do that as it relates to these topics if it works well. Because again, think of your favorite novel or your short story. A lot of those are made fictionalized for the purpose of telling a story. I'm not going to necessarily go back and fact check everybody, right? I don't care. As long as it flows with being a narrative, meaning it has a beginning, middle, and end. You sort of have that sort of beginning and then rising action and highest point being your climax, and then you start to slope down for your resolution and then ending. That's what I'm looking for. It can be informative. It can be entertaining. You can be neutral as it relates to the attitude or the tone. You can be humorous. You can be, comical. You can have a little bit of a mixture of all of that. As long as I see where you're going from point A to point B to point C to point D, and you fit, you pick one of these 4 topics, you stay on topic, and it's 2 pages or 500 words in the MLA format, I'm good. You don't have to be, in this case, you don't necessarily have to tell the truth 100% of the time, unless you just want to. Now, as we get closer to the research paper, when you're going to have to use, 6 or 7 outside sources that have to be reputable sources, then yes, then there you're going to have to be a little bit more on the nonfiction side of things, and you're going to have to kind of leave the creative aspect as it relates to being, fictionalized out of. But we're working toward that. With some of these earlier essays, I'm looking at 1, how well can you really write on a particular topic? How well is your creativity when it comes to some of these? Because a lot of times these first couple essays are really more or less like a creative piece, but you could still stay academic by following the rules and the format and stuff. But it helps get the juices flowing, especially if it's been a while for some of y'all to write on a particular topic, because some of you might have just came out of high school within a year or 2, and then some of y'all might have been out of school for 25 years. I mean, I don't know where everybody's level is as it relates to writing is at. I will start to see that as we go through these peer reviews and as we start getting these final drafts in for me to grade. And then we can kind of zone in and focus on stuff that we really need to possibly focus on as it relates to grammar and that type of stuff. We really need to look at something a little bit more in depth. All right. So I know this is getting it's going past really the 60 minutes here. I didn't want to sort of keep going on so much, but I wanted to show you what you would need to do with this particular first week, where to find stuff, where to find the first assignment, where to find the first paper topic. Now this, like I said, with these, you want to download essay 1 topics. You probably want to save that or print it out. I probably will push it over to next week, but some of this other stuff like these videos, they're going to disappear when this thing becomes unavailable at midnight on Sunday. So if you need to save any of this, you might want to copy and paste the hyperlink somewhere. What I may suggest you do that you create a Microsoft Word sort of notebook where you basically, put English 1010 and then put class notes and then stuff that you need to copy and paste or keep. You can kind of just copy and paste onto that document and save it. And that way you can kind of keep it on the computer at all times. When the folder disappears, you still have it. That's my suggestion. You don't have to do that, but if you're one that has a hard time staying organized, that's the other thing that you're going to have to be able to do besides time management is be organized. That's what I would suggest that you do. Let's real quick look at the syllabus and the checklist. Let me pull up the checklist just to show you what. This is probably going to be a little bit more important as it relates to what is due and when it's due. So I'm going to blow this up a little bit. So basically, as you can tell, I give you the week, I give you the numbers. So week 1 through the final exam week. I basically tell you what week it is, the reading, what you need to read. I tell you e-text, I give you the pages. And then if it's not in your book, I tell you to sort of look at your folder to find it. Like the Lexi piece is a handout. Assignment due, this is when it's due by 11:59 on Sunday. Most things, as you can tell throughout the semester, has a Sunday deadline. The Dropbox for most of these will be up a week and a half ahead of time, since the next week's folder will open up every Wednesday at midnight. So not knowing, everybody knows when things are due. You can turn stuff in earlier to avoid, late work. Because again, I'm not going to hunt you down. This is not high school. If you don't turn it in, you just get a 0. I will tell you this, each 0 that you make, whether you make it on a discussion post, a quiz, an essay, a midterm, a final exam, it really doesn't matter. Each 0 that you make, it's going to bring you down 20 points. So if you make 3 zeros, you can do the math. 20 times 3 is 60. 60 from 100 is a 40. You have a 40 now in the class. The deal is about getting zeros. If you had 3 zeros at that point, you're failing. And it will take at least 15 100s just to pull your 40 up to about a C. The problem with that is we don't have, X 15 plus assignments really to do in the course. So if you start collecting zeros in October, you might as well withdraw, because there's probably not going to be any way you're going to pull your 40 back up to a 70 in 7 weeks, especially if you're not turning stuff in as it is now. If you just log in to look at, that's what a lot of folks do. They just log in, they look at their grade, they realize, oh, I got a 25 this week. Okay, I'm not going to do anything for the next 7 days. And when day 8 comes in, basically next Monday, when I know something is due, I'm going to log back in and show now that my 25 has become a 12. Well, how did that happen? Well, because you didn't turn anything in, and you haven't been turning anything in the last 7 weeks. So your grade's going to continue to drop if you don't turn stuff in. I will say this, if you get 5 zeros, you're at a 0 in the course. There's just no way you're going to be able to pull that up. I would say after 3 zeros, really, I mean, if you get 2, you're basically at a 60. So that's a low D. There might be an opportunity, but I would say if you get 3 or more zeros, it doesn't matter when you get it, whether you get it in September, whether you spread them out and get one August, September, October, it doesn't really matter. If you have 3 or more zeros, chances are you're going to get an F in this class unless you withdraw. And that's math. That's not me. That's the mathematical. I did the math on it. I know that happens every time, because I've had a few folks that came up and had 6 zeros, and technically they should be in the negative numbers. We stop at 0, but really their grade should have been like negative 40. So be wary, be mindful of zeros. But if you scroll down here, this basically tells you what week we're on, what you need to read, where you can find it, and what is due that week. If you look as we get later into the semester, some things may change as the due date. It may not always be Sunday. It looks like everything will be on a Sunday, which is good in this case. So you're going to know, excuse me, since week one that, pretty much between now and the end of the semester, something is going to be due every Sunday. The only thing that's going to may not be due would be Thanksgiving week. And then the week after, there's nothing really due there. So, and the final exam you're going to have that before a Sunday. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. So there's only really 3 weeks out of the semester where there's nothing per se due on a Sunday. And there's only 2 weeks of those 3 that you're not really turning anything in. I'm giving you, one is Thanksgiving, you're spending time with your family, and we don't really have class. And then the week after is just sort of wrapping up, getting ready to turn that research paper in and start on your final exam. So this is going to be a very good thing to come back and refer to, especially if you have a hard time keeping up with stuff. This lays it out. If something changes, again, I will email or send an announcement to kind of let you know of the change. For the most part, the reading's probably going to stay the same. It's going to be, hey, assignment 2, essay 2, maybe on a Monday, maybe the 26th until the 25th, just because there's just a lot coming on me. But for the most part right now, I'm going to keep with the Sunday schedule. It seemed to work with everybody in my previous classes, so that's how I'm going to roll with it for this semester. Syllabi real quick. I'm going to pull that up. I'm not going to go through it because I know this is getting long. But I'm just going to show you a couple things. Office hours. My office is 1214. I'm at the Camden County Center, our campus. Office hours is going to be Monday and Wednesday, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. And then 3:15 to 4:15 Tuesday and Thursday. The R represents Thursday. Some folks have a hard time when they see R in their schedule. They don't really realize what it means, but it means Thursday. And then tutoring hours, if you want in-person tutoring hours, it's basically going to be 10 a.m. through 11 a.m. Monday through Thursday. And we can meet in the Coastal Pines library, or we can go to a classroom or something of that nature. I would just, email me, let me know that you're coming so I can meet you down there. Otherwise, we can do something via Teams if you want to go that route, if you want to save gas or if you live a long way. And again, look at the acceptable computer and internet policy, click on the hyperlink. There's another way you can get your textbook here. And then you have all this other stuff, hopefully, that you've read. Again, read it. It's going to stay open for you through the remaining of the semester. Email me if you have any questions. This is the grading scale. This is sort of how things are weighted. If you look, I give you footnotes for the major and the low stake. Basically, what I do is break that stuff down. Like the first essay is worth 10%. So as we go from moving up the word count and the page length, I also move up the percentage and on the major stakes assignments. So as we get closer to the research paper, as you can tell, I go from 10, 12, 15, 16, 17%. And then anything that you sort of do low stakes has various percentages, between 8 and 14. We talked a little bit about smart thinking. There is a way to get there from here, but you can go through your Blackboard. This talks a little bit more about ProctorU. Again, as it gets closer to December, you want to go ahead and get that set up if you haven't had to set up a ProctorU yet. And this is basically our agenda or our schedule, which again, subject to change. If it changes, I will let you know in a timely manner. But in a nutshell, that is your course. To show you real quick about the template, because I'm going to email this stuff out too, but if you go to your Microsoft Word, and this is in your desktop version, but you should be able to find the same thing if you're using the free version on Office 365, and I'll show you where you can find that. Is if you go to File and hit New, you're going to see all kinds of different templates. if you just type in MLA, you're probably going to get 3 templates that pop up. Either the research paper or the MLA style paper will work. I'm just going to click on the research paper because again, it's MLA. If you read this, it's a little dated because it's going back to the 7th. We're actually on the 9th edition, but the information is pretty much still the same. It kind of tells you a little bit more how to set up and what MLA is all about. What you need to do then is put your name where it says your name. So let's say the student is Jeff Smith. You type that in there. You will put my name, Mr. Wilson. You will put the course number. So in this case, since we are English 1010, I'm just going to abbreviate ENGL, capitalize 1010. And then what I would do is put the date that the paper is actually due. So in this case, the first one's due on 9/11. So I'm just going to put 9/11/22. And up here where it says last name, you want to double click that. You want to put your last name and leave the page number 1, because when you go to the next page, it should say Smith 2. So you want to double click underneath that line. Then it's going to say title or subtitle. You don't necessarily have to give it a subtitle unless you just want to, but you should have a title. And the title is going to reflect whatever paper topic that you chose. So in this case, I'm just going to make up a title. Let's say, and it can be something short and sweet like First Day at College. You don't need to make it a complete thought or sentence. I mean, you think about some of the titles, novels that you've read, short stories, television shows. I mean, Family Guy is a title. Star Wars is a title. It's 2 words. It doesn't have to be a sentence length. And then what I would do is, because this is just basic information, highlight all this stuff. You're not necessarily going to need a works cited page for the first 4, or at least for the first essay. Backspace it, and then when you hit enter, you want to make sure you go back to the left line, and then you want to tab each time you begin a new paragraph. And what I'm going to show you is I'm just going to write a bunch of X's. But what it does, it keeps everything that was in the previous format. So as you can tell, everything is going to be double spaced, which is what you need to do. Everything is, if you highlight, because I can do this on my end when I download it, it's still Times New Roman and 12, so there's no guesswork. And when you do get to the next page, it's going to say Smith 2 or whatever your last name is. So what I would suggest then is once you have one that's already formatted in the MLA format, what I would do is after you turn in that final paper is go back to that first paper, erase everything except for your header. You want to change the date because when you do essay 2, it's going to be a different due date. You're going to have a different title. But if you go back and erase all that information, everything is still going to be in that same format as it relates to the template. So you don't have to keep redoing that time in and time out. You just have to make sure that you're changing the date and the title. That's just what I would do. Again, check your email. I'll give you some additional information about MLA format that's going to be useful as it gets closer to the research paper, but it's also going to help you get started with the first draft. One is going to sort of look like this, where it gives you little bubbles that sort of tell you what you need to do in each section. This is more or less like a research paper, but again, you're still using MLA format. So some stuff at this point you can kind of overlook, but for the basic format, it gives you a visual guide about how to go about doing that. The other thing that I'm going to probably send out is basically an MLA 9 style. It gives you also, again, another chance to look at the format, but it also talks about citations and quotations, which as we get closer to the research paper would be a benefit for you to learn how to do this, because you're going to need to know how to do it when we get to that point. And here's another paper that basically reiterates some stuff. All good information, all will get you started, because that's how I want your essays to be when you're turning them in, not only as a rough draft, but also as a final draft. Because if I can't read it in the correct format, because that's basically what we're teaching you how to do, is write in the format, in this case MLA, then your grade is going to suffer. because I basically told you how to go about doing that. I'm giving you handouts about how to go about doing that. And if you're not doing it, then you're just not reading or reaching out for the help. Now, the other thing I was going to show you, once you get into your email account, because you do have a free version of Microsoft Word. Now, keep in mind, because it's free doesn't mean it's the best in the world, but it will get you, gives you a brief grammar check, spell check. It's free, so you can use it. If you go into your Office Outlook and go up to this little, there's like a little triangle of dots. That's where you're going to find your apps. So you can either click there, or if you go down, you can see this little app with Word, but I'm going to show you this one. You click there, there's Word. You also have PowerPoint, you have Excel if you need those. OneNote's really good for taking notes, but if you click on the Word, it's going to take you to a blank document where you can kind of create one where it says new, right? You can look at templates here. It has some templates involved. So you can use, even if you don't have Microsoft Word for, say, built into your desktop, or if you don't want to buy the version at Walmart, because you can go to Walmart and get one. You can also get sort of the cloud version, which is basically what you're using now. I think it's like a $10 a month subscription. It's actually cheaper than Netflix. The benefit of that is if you are going to need to use Microsoft Word, Office, Excel, PowerPoint before you graduate, it may be a benefit to have the $10 subscription now, because each time they update, it will update automatically without you having to pay a charge. If you bought the version, let's say from Office Max or Walmart, you're probably going to be charged anywhere from 150 to 200 bucks. And that one is not going to automatically update. Let's say there was an update each month. You're not going to get that with the desktop version that you just bought and uploaded from Walmart. So you have a couple options there. Again, if your whole deal is to save money, hey, you're probably never going to use Microsoft Word again, at least for a while, then I would just use the free version through your Office Outlook. If you think that it would be a good investment to have and something that you don't want to have any frustration with as it relates to updating it constantly, then I would probably pay the $10 subscription. If it's something that you just want to have but don't want to use the updates, but you just want to have sort of all the features on your desktop, then I would go the route and see if they can give you maybe a college discount. Sometimes they would give you a college discount if they see your college ID and that type of stuff at Office Max and some of these places. Otherwise, that's pretty much our course in a nutshell. I'm glad everybody is here. I want to wish, again, everybody a great week one. And if you need any help, please reach out. I'm here to help. Until next week, have a great rest of your week.